Hey now, today we're going to take a look at New Dawn from Artipia Games, and I believe that this will eventually be released widely in North America from Stronghold Games, which has been doing some of the other Artipia Among the Stars series of games. And by the way, yes, this is a thematic sequel to Among the Stars, which made it onto my top 100 list because it is a fantastic thematic card drafting game. And Among the Stars, the story is that in the very, very, very far future where humans have actually kind of evolved a little bit, and they're called like Humarines, they've spread out to the galaxy, but there was this huge galactic war that nearly wiped out all the races and left all these planets as burned out husks. So all the races have to sort of put their differences aside and build space stations and sort of be at peace with one another. These huge space stations where they can actually, their races to sort of live and flourish. And in New Dawn, it's the same universe, same things are going on, but now it's more, time has passed and the races are being more combative with one another. They're fighting for different sectors of the galaxy to control and even trying, I guess, to control more of these planets that are still viable. They're not completely dead yet. So even though thematically it's the same, you still take control of aliens and you're still trying to play square cards down to the table, this one is actually an area control game. It's not a card drafting game. You're playing these facility cards and you're actually trying to take control of them with bases and mobile headquarters, and even trying to take control of other players' bases that they've already put out by seizing control. So this is much more combative and in your face than Among the Stars, but does that make it a solid game and a worthy predecessor, or not predecessor, successor, excuse me. Let's go ahead and take a look at how the game is played. Then we're going to come back and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of New Dawn, the thematic sequel to Among the Stars from Artipia Games. Now there's a lot to go over here, so I can't cover every single thing. I'm just going to give you a general run through to give you a taste of it. In this game, you take control of different alien races, including possibly Humarines, or like evolved humans, and you are vying for supremacy of all these different facilities and space stations out in this universe in the very, very, very far future. Now, the goal here, of course, is to get the most victory points. You're going to get the most victory points by at the end of 5 rounds. So you go through 5 full rounds of play, and whoever has the most points at that time is going to be the winner. Okay, a couple things about the board. First, this represents like this part of the galaxy that you're vying for control over. The board is actually double-sided. I'm using the side that has like what look like these Tetris pieces outlined on the board. These are special like war zones, and you don't have to use these on the other side of the board. They're gone if you don't want to. They're just an extra little thing you can add to the game. Some of the zones say you cannot build a base there. Some say you can't. You get bonuses if you try to seize control there. That's all that they do. They're just an extra little thing that you can add to the game. There are also, it might be hard to see, but there's other colored lines that seem to be segregating whole quadrants of the board. That is for less players. So if you play with a full 4-player game, the entire board is open to you, and that's how I have this set up. But if you play with 2 or 3 players, you'll actually use a smaller section of the board. The other squares are sort of considered to not be there in that case. The other thing that's optional, it's like a little variant to add to the game, but I have them out there anyways just to show you, are like these different space stations that can start out on the board, and they'll have special effects depending on how you build next to them. They might affect all players. They don't particularly give any player an edge, but they might depending on how you play them or play next to them. So if I can just give you an example here, you have ones like, well, the New Dawn 1, which I guess is the name of the game. This one says at the end of the game, all adjacent facilities are worth 1 victory point more. So that might be something to plan around. Just another example, you have the Ravager Q0X2. Add 4 green reroll tokens on this card. Whenever a player explores a facility on an adjacent region, he gets a green, not reroll, but just a green die token for his card, which is pretty good, and as I'll explain a little bit more as we go. You also start off with an alliance base card out on the map, always in the same sector, 3-3. And every player is going to start with one of their colored bases, as you can see out on the player cards, and one of their mobile headquarters. Mobile headquarters being just a little bit bigger than the actual bases, just to differentiate them and tell them apart. So every player will have one of each of those things out on the alliance base card, because that's essentially where you start and where you build out from. Now the decision of which one of your bases you put out there is actually important, because on your character card, in addition to your special abilities and places for different special tech that you can get, you have these 3 tracks that I'll actually show you one of the ones that we're not using in this game. Here we have the Shepos, something like that. So here's what it looks like without all of the bases covering all the cards. You have these 3 tracks: economic, military, and science. Whenever you put a base out, at the beginning of the game you can choose whichever base you want from the farthest left of the track that you want. But in the future, whenever you want to put out a base, it has to be on a facility card that matches the type that you want to put out. So if you put out if you have the option to build a base on an economic facility card, you would get a chance to put out another economic base. At the beginning of every round, you have a production phase. The production phase lets you get a token for every uncovered spot you have on your board. So if you have 3 economic bases out, you'll have 3 of your economic spots uncovered, in which case you'll get 3 of the yellow tokens. If it was for military or science, you would get those colored tokens instead. And those are the primary engine that you have for the game. Those are the resources you use in order to do things. So you have to decide early on what your strategy is going to be and what type of resources you're focusing on, because that will determine the type of gameplay that you have. Now, you also have spots out on your player board for the mobile headquarters. I'll just sort of shift this a bit. You'll have different spots down there that I'll show you on the Shepos card as well. These empty spaces where you store the mobile headquarters that you don't have out quite yet. During the course of the game, you can also build those for the resources listed, and those will actually get you victory points as well. But the mobile headquarters are important because while bases provide you resources, mobile headquarters are how you're actually going to build more bases and how you're going to take control of other people's bases. So let's just go through how a typical round is going to work. First thing you do, I already mentioned production. Then you're going to draw facility cards. Now, facility cards are these 4 stacks of cards over here. They are color coordinated for the different types of cards. So yellow, blue, and red is obvious. That is economics, science, and military. They correspond to the colors on your economic track. So you know if you go for some of those facility cards, they're likely to get you those types of resources and have those types of special abilities. But the purple cards, those are hostile bases. Those, here, I'll show you one of those first, actually. These ones have to be taken control of. You cannot just establish a base here economically. You have to fight for it. The same way you'd have to fight another player for one of their bases. So over here, it'll tell you what type of base this is. So if you successfully manage to subdue this hostile territory, you put one of your red bases there. Down in the corner, you have the base defense, and then you have victory points. For all of the facility cards, if you have a base there at the end of the game, you gain those victory points. For the hostile cards, when you're fighting one, you have to add these 2 numbers at the bottom, and that's the number you're trying to beat. Now, for any facility card, the text in the box is only applicable when you're playing the facility cards. So first you go through the draw facility cards phase. Each player in order is going to draw up to 4 cards from any of the 4 stacks that they want, and then you're playing them. And when you play them down on the board, you can play them off of the alliance base, or you can play them any place adjacent that includes diagonally in this game to the alliance base, or then when another player has another base out, you can start building diagonally or adjacent orthogonally to that base, and so on, spreading out into the galaxy. And when you play cards just in this phase, you get to do the special ability in the text box, regardless of whatever else is on here. So for instance, this one says Deep Space Launch Pads. You get 1 resource of your choice, which is with this little rainbow pinwheel. I don't know if you can see that very well. That's what the rainbow pinwheel means whenever you get any resource of your choice. And you get to add a green, you roll a green die. You get another resource of your choice equal to the result. You may not use any tokens on this roll. So every player is going to go around playing one of the facility cards that they drew during the previous phase down onto the board, gaining the special ability for it, and that's it. Everything else on the card is irrelevant for right now. So let's just go ahead and say, let me show you, here's another example. Now these are functionally the same, and I'll get to what those arrows mean in a little bit. But for the normal types of cards, not the hostile ones, they have a currency, the yellow coin symbol down here. That's the cost to establish a base, which I'll also get back to in a second. But let's assume that each player has built some different facilities out here. They've just played them down. That's all you're doing is playing them and getting the special ability. If you want, you don't even have to. Once you do that, you're going to go into explore. That's called exploring the facility. Then you have the option of buying technology. Buying technology, every player is going to have their own little set of hobbit cards, as I like to call them, that represent their technology. Now, at the beginning of the game, you only have access to the cards marked as A. So that's what maybe half the cards are, and then the other half are marked as B cards, which are slightly better, but you don't have access to them until round 3. I should also mention that for the facility cards, it's the same way. You have stacks of cards that are A cards, and then they get replaced by B cards, which are more powerful and worth more victory points during round 3. The tech cards give you special abilities. So for instance, for the Humarines here, it says choose a facility you control, get one resource of any type of the type it produces. Just by using it, every card is usable once per round. You flip it face down when you've used it. This one says pay any resource of your choice, and you get to move one of your mobile headquarters. This one says when you explore a facility, you get a reroll token. So, and up in the corner is the resource cost that you have to pay. So you only have spots on your board for 5 of these. When you build all 5 of them and you're done, you can't build any more. But if you build your 3rd, 4th, or 5th tech, you actually get 1, and then 2 victory points. Just the same way you would when you build mobile headquarters. And also, I didn't mention this before, if you get to the end of one of your economic tracks, you actually gain a victory point bonus as well if you put out all the bases of that type. So once everyone's decided whether or not they're going to build one tech during their turn, then it's time to go on to the next phase, which is moving your mobile headquarters. Every player has a chance to move one of their mobile headquarters to any spot that is applicable. There's no limitation on movement so long as they're connected and that they're actually a facility card. And once everyone's plops down wherever they want their mobile headquarters to go, you'll move on to the next phase. I'll explain why mobile headquarters are important in a minute. Now it's the actions phase, and this is the important part of the game. The track over here indicates number of actions. Every player has 3 actions they can use during this turn, and you keep doing it in clockwise order. So player A takes their action, player B takes an action, player C takes an action, player D takes an action, then it starts over again, and now everyone gets their 2nd action, and then their 3rd action, and then that part of the round is over, and you're almost at the end of the round, as a matter of fact. You have different actions you can take. One is that you can just simply get a resource token of your choice. That's very simple. Take a different colored resource token depending on what you want to do. Then you can establish a base. Establishing a base is the peaceful way to put another one of your bases out. It's one of the cards that's non-hostile and doesn't already have another player's base there. You just say, okay, I'm going to pay that cost in the yellow tokens, and I get to put one of my bases out. So let's just assume that the blue player here does that over where you have to have a mobile headquarters either on it or adjacent to that base, and then you put one of your bases out, and now at the start of your next round, you'll have new production for having done that. Your other option, however, is to seize control of a base. There's 2 situations where this would apply. If you're on or adjacent to a hostile facility, one of the purple cards, you can attempt to seize control of that base and try to put one of yours out there, in which case you're only really competing against the card and trying to beat its total. Or if you have one of your mobile headquarters on or adjacent to where someone else has a base, let's go ahead and just for this example, say that there was a, let's do it like this, there was a red base here, the yellow player has his mobile headquarters there, or it could be adjacent as well, and you can have multiple mobile headquarters there, it would make you stronger, and yellow's trying to take red's base with its seize control action, and that does take one of your actions for the turn. How this works, we'll do the hostile facility one first, but they're mostly the same. This is where this huge pile of dice comes in over here. So, first thing you do, and actually there's one other thing I forgot with base orientation. We're going to get back to that in a second. First thing you do, look at the numbers down here like I explained before. So this one's very simple. It's just a 3. Then that's the defense of this hostile card. Then you're going to look at what mobile headquarters you have. So the red player here has 1 mobile headquarters on the card and nowhere else is it adjacent. So he has 1 mobile headquarters on it. That means he's going to get one of the yellow dice. The yellow dice having 2, 3s, 4s, and 6s on it. And then all you're simply doing is rolling off to see if you get a higher number than 3. And you did. You can't tie. The ties always go to defense, but you had a higher number, so the red player is going to get to put a military base out on this hostile card because it is a military base. Now let's assume that it was a person there instead. It was someone else, another player had put a base there. The player actually gets a yellow die just for their base as well, so it's a little bit tougher. Now you're doing a roll-off essentially to see who has the higher number. But there's other things that can mitigate the amount of dice you get as well. Let's say, for example, that yellow was attacking, and yellow had mobile headquarters on adjacent bases. then those dice, mobile headquarters on adjacent facility cards, those mobile headquarters would provide a white die for each one. Whites being weaker than yellows, but hey, you get to roll them all together and compare the numbers as well. And if those happen to actually be on the same card, now you've got a bunch of yellow dice as well. But the defender gets to add adjacent mobile headquarters as well. So this red player would actually roll a yellow and a white in this instance. Then you roll off and see who has a higher number. If one player kills another player's base, the player who lost has to put their base back on the track in the appropriate spot, and the player who won gets to put out one of their bases of the appropriate type for that facility card. Now, the important thing with establishing a base, whether you're doing it just through establishing it normally or seizing control, is that at that point, you then have the option of orienting the card. The cards, I'll just show you, so it might be kind of hard to see. The cards have arrows on them, and the arrows sometimes go in all three directions, or never in four directions, but they're either in three directions, one direction, two directions. Some facility cards don't have any arrows on it because they might have a really cool special ability to make up for it. You orient the card in the direction you want because then you will immediately gain the benefit of the cards that the arrows are pointing to, the goal cards that are surrounding the board. That's what these four cards are. There's two green ones, two orange ones that are that run opposite each other. This one says that you immediately get one of these green green die tokens. That means that you get to use this token before you make a roll in order to add a green die to it. This one over here says you get a resource of your choice. This one says you get +2 to that base's defense so long as you're oriented that way. And this one lets you turn in 2 resource tokens of your choice to get a victory point. Victory points being these tokens here, in addition to the static victory points on your player board at the end of the game. Boy, I'm really messing up the Humorine player's base allotment here. Anyways, a couple of other tokens you have. This one is a reroll token, so you get to reroll your dice after you've rolled them by spending those tokens. And this one gives you a +2 if you choose to spend it before you make your roll, but you only have spots for 2 tokens on your player boards. If you get more, you have to swap them out. Other actions you can take on your turn, using the ambassadors. There's a lot of stuff to this game, I told you. These are the ambassadors over here. Each ambassador has a different special ability that they can give you. Let me pick a cool one to show you with art that I really like. So this Humorine ambassador, Alith McKean, says, get 2 resources of the type this facility produces. This one here is Warlike. He says you have to spend a resource to use his. Some of them are like that. Seize control of the facility, adding +3 to your total. This is essentially an action you can take, and if it gives you another action as part of it, well, whoop-de-doo, you essentially are gaining 2 actions. You take the token corresponding to the ambassador that you're using and put it on any of the facility cards, but a facility card can only hold 2 ambassadors, and some of the abilities are very dependent on where you put that ambassador. And that's essentially how the ambassadors work. It's actually pretty simple. And finally, the last type of action you have on your turn is simply purchasing another mobile headquarters, putting it out on the board wherever you like, and then you have a one-time free action to move all of your other mobile headquarters as well wherever you like. Remember that it takes a lot of resources to build these mobile headquarters, but it does give you more options, and you will now gain more victory points as well at the end of the game. And the very last thing I have to explain, and I didn't have actually room to leave it out like you should, but you have this set of Aid to the Alliance cards, and you should actually have them shuffled up and have 3 of them off to the side of the board for everyone to choose from. The way that these cards are set up, they are very simply, you'll get to that final phase. In turn order, each player has 1 chance to aid the Alliance. All of these cards have pictures of ships, and they'll have a certain number of resources you can trade in for a certain number of victory points. Usually 1, 2, or 3 victory points, and an escalating number of victory points. Like this one is 6 tokens of any type for 3 victory points, whereas this one is very simply 2 military tokens gets you 1 victory point token. You have 1 option to buy. When you buy something, if you do, it gets immediately replaced for the other players to pick from. This continues till everyone's had a chance to buy or not. Then you reset everything. The ambassadors go back to where they belong. And then you begin the round again. Decide who the first player is, which is really wonky because it's whoever has the least bases out on the board, or in that case, it's a tie going back to who was the first player before. But anyways, you continue doing this until you get through 5 rounds of play. When you get through 5 rounds of play, add up all of your points from the bases you have established out on facility cards out on the board. Look at their victory point totals. The mobile headquarters you've built, the tech that you've built, any victory point tokens you've achieved throughout the game, and even some of the, there's even goal cards that give you victory points just for orienting yourself this way. Add all those points together. Whoever has the most is the winner. First off, theme and components. This game just looks stunning. Stunning. I had nothing but good things to say about the artwork in the original Among the Stars game, but I even think that it looks a little more refined here, a little bit cleaner, even better. It's so good, especially like the spaceships on the special spaceship cards that you put out on the board, or in the Aid to the Alliance cards. So cool looking, and the artwork for the aliens is amazing. It's just great. I love it. The pieces are great too. The little bases and the mobile headquarters. I guess I wish that they were different for each player, but that would be like way above board. That would be the cost for that would have been made the game like $50 higher. So okay, I understand you're not going to do that. I know that as part of the Kickstarter campaign, you could get like little, or maybe you can even buy these eventually without having to go to the Kickstarter. But there were little miniature busts for the ambassadors. That would have made this even better. But even so, it's hard to complain with the quality of the components here. Really, really great. I really appreciate it. And again, it's, you know, every game so far that I've played or game or expansion, I should say, that has to do with Among the Stars universe has just been felt very thematic to me, and New Dawn is the same way, and it's really helped along a lot by the components and the artwork. People that say the components don't matter really are not. I just don't think they get it. I think that it's a visual medium, and games like this really help bring that to the forefront. And speaking of the theme, I like this one. I thought that maybe Among the Stars felt cooler to me as a theme, just because it's fun to like be building a space station. This one is just going around trying to take other people's facilities and put down bases, which is fine, but this is like straight up war and combat. So it feels thematic, and you're getting the help of these different ambassadors to come to your aid during trying to control all these different facilities, but it wasn't as great a theme for me as Among the Stars, but I don't really want to complain too much. It still felt like a very thematic experience, and I did think it was very cool in that regard. Now, as far as the gameplay, I think I was really surprised by how in-your-face this game is. It's probably a viable strategy if you really work at it to take the route of not being that combative and maybe just establishing bases as opposed to seizing control of bases, making that your focus, focusing on Aid to the Alliance. I'm sure that there's a viable strategy to be had there. I've only played this game 3 times, so I have not seen that strategy work, but it may. So I'm not saying it can't, but it seems to me that being aggressive is severely encouraged in this game, to the point where most races seem to have that sort of bent towards them. If you think about like I'm going to butcher these names, but the Groth Narok, whatever, the big intimidating Klingon-like people, they get a bonus to combat. The Qualeen can defend or attack or aid attacking a base or seizing control of a base with their mobile headquarters from 2 away, which is amazing. It's the reason why they only have 2 mobile headquarters, because otherwise it would just be insane. And even ones like the Sisypheans or something, the sort of long-necked people, they get once per round to roll an extra green die, and I will guarantee you will be using that most often for either defending or attacking. And I'm not complaining. I'm really not. I just think that some people are going to be quite surprised when they see that it's sort of an area control game that'll feel more Euro-ish, and this is definitely a balance between Euro-style mechanics, resource management, area control, and then just straight up combat and rolling a bunch of dice. And there's definitely a lot of things you can do to mitigate that. This is not like a straight up random dice and luck fest. There's actually a lot of different things you can do. Special tech cards that each of your races have, and that's great. I love tech in any game. It's not really pronounced here, but it's cool, and you're incentivized to get tech because it gives you victory points. But that's one way you can mitigate things. Your character special powers, which I already mentioned. The different location cards around the board, like the goal cards, and how you adjust and orient to them. Some of those can really help you, either giving you, depending on the random allotment that you have, it can give you bonuses to your defense, it can give you extra tokens, and that's another way to mitigate this, using everything in your power to get those tokens to give you re-rolls, let you roll extra green dice, give you +2s. So there's lots and lots of ways to mitigate the dice rolls and make it not quite as random, and I like that, but there is still that random chance, which is something that you need in order to keep the game fun for people and to keep people engaged, because otherwise it would just be way too easy for a very experienced player to just crush the other players. There has to be a random chance that someone that's inexperienced can do well, and I think that this game balances that very, very well, in my opinion. Having said that, And having played this 3 times now, each time with at least a couple of new people, an experienced player will crush a less experienced player, but not by a tremendous amount. Every game on this that I've played has been tight as far as scoring goes, and I love that. I love games with tight scoring because it really just, I hate the feeling that you're just out of it. I really do. I think that could happen in this game, but you would have to be really trying or really not trying to do anything in the game in order for that to happen. If you're at least making a strong effort, you can make a good showing in this game. Some people may complain that that means that there's not a tremendous amount of strategy in this game, but I disagree. I think it's because you have a lot of different options of what you can do. Focusing on your tech, focusing on putting out bases, focusing on taking over as many bases as you can. I still think that aggression is rewarded heavily, but you have other things you can focus on in the meantime. And because of that, in every game that I've played, between first and second place, there's been like 1 or 2 point difference. And then between like third and second has been like 1 or 2 points. It really is that close. And even in a couple of the games, the fourth place person was still just a few points behind them. Clearly not doing as well, but not hopeless. And I love that. That is really great for me. There's a lot to enjoy here, really. And I love the whole aspect. I think other games like Eclipse have done something like this, where you put bases out, and whatever base you put out from whichever of the economic, military, or science tracks you choose is going to give you that resource, so it gives you something to focus on. I question the fact that it seems like science is like a no-brainer for most of the races, because science is what you need. You need at least one science, I believe, for almost every single tech in the game, for most of them anyways, especially the A cards. So that seems like a really, really good one to go for. And then, of course, you need a mixture of things for like A to the Alliance. So science seems like a no-brainer, but I've tried going for different tracks, and I've met with success too. So I think you do have some options and variability there. It's not... You're not railroaded down just one path in that regard. But I like that whole base system. The whole thing with the mobile headquarters, it can be tricky sometimes to figure out the dice that you can roll in combat because of all these different things. Oh, you have a base there, that gives you yellow die. Then you have mobile headquarters here, that gives you white. This one gives you white over here too. Oh, you have that special ability? Then you're going to get this too. So that can be tricky. That is definitely a learning curve thing. Once you get your first game under you, the people that played this a couple of times with me are just like, they got it like that. People that are new are going to need to be coached on that. It takes a while to learn what dice you get, what modifiers you can have. But once you have it, it is very simple. And that's the thing. The game looks intimidating. It probably did when I first showed it on camera during the overview. The reality is it's relatively simple, but that's to its benefit. You can get right into it and start rolling. By the time you get to like the third round, people are like, okay, I got it. Of course, by then, they probably made too many mistakes. But in their second game, it'll be much, much smoother. I like the aspect of cycling through the different cards for both the A decks and B decks of the facility cards, and also the tech cards as well. The different player powers are unique. There's enough races here to give some good variability, but I can definitely see that in future expansions, having more races would be even better and even cooler. There's a lot of moving parts. This is a surprising amount. The ambassadors, I thought at the beginning might be too powerful, but then I realized that you should be using them. Everybody should be using them to their best of their ability. And it makes sense, and it's a great way to add some, just to do something different in the game, because otherwise you'd have this set list of actions, and that is all that you can do. But at least if you take this one, this ambassador, okay, you're still doing this. He's a control action, but now you get a bonus. Now you're incentivized to use it. But you can only use them a limited amount of times. They each only once per round, and only two ambassadors per facility card. So it's not an unlimited power source, but it's very, very useful, and I like that they're there. And thematically, it still makes sense. The ambassadors coming to your station or facility, just like in Among the Stars. The A to the Alliance cards, that's probably a little bit of the most unthematic thing in the game, because I can explain it to players and say, okay, this represents us pooling our resources and making these giant warships to go fight, I don't know who. I'm not really that familiar with the lore. I guess that's what it is, or just strengthening the whole power of this galactic United Nations. But it still just feels like you're trading in tokens for victory points, which is what it is. And I also think that gameplay-wise, that is a really critical strategy to winning the game. You need to make strong efforts to do that, because again, the point totals are low and they are tight. I haven't played a game of this yet where anyone's hit 30 points, but I believe that that's possible. And so it's having 2 to 3 points is awesome. That can make or break your game easily. And I think that the people who completely ignore Aid to the Alliance are usually the people who don't win the game. But I think that just highlights the fact that every single part of the game should have some sort of attention put towards it. And I like that. I like that you have all these different things that you can choose to focus. Some are part of your attention on, but you've got to keep a lot of these plates spinning, or else you're just not going to fail, because there's very little margin for error. Does it seem like I like this game? I like this game a lot. I kind of knew that I would like it, and it turns out I was really right about it. Yes, there's some nitpicky things I don't like. It's not, some aspects of it are not as thematic as I would like, and aggression seems to be highly rewarded much more than some of the other ways, but again, maybe over more plays that will come out less. If I could say one really nitpicky thing, I don't like the turn order mechanism. The way that the turn order works, I hope I explained this in my overview, is that if it's after the first round where you just do it randomly, it's whoever has the least amount of bases, but for the first few rounds, it is very, very easy for that to be a tie, in which case it's going to go to the person who's closest to the person that just went, which could be the person that just wins. So it can be very odd. I think in every game I've played, there's been at least 2 rounds, sometimes 3, or I think our first game was 4 rounds where there was a tie, and therefore, including the first player, so therefore it just kept going back to the same person. That is really weird, especially in a 5-round game. But other than that, and you could easily home rule that if you want. I don't think it would break the balance too much. I'll probably try that myself next time. But really, other than those small things, this is a solid game. I could see it needing expansion soon, but even if I was getting tons and tons of replay value out of this base set, I'd still want to see expansions because I want to see this world more fleshed out. Fun area control game, lots of cool bits, fantastic artwork. It's just a great time if you've got people who are willing to sit down for a moderate to long length game that's always in your face and always tight and tense. If you've got the group for that, get this game as soon as you can. I don't know what its availability is right now or what it will be in the future, but it will be available and you should snatch it up. It is great. That is New Dawn from Artipia Games.